Hi, and thanks for logging on to the Daily DVAR Halacha. And here's a brand new halacha for you, and it's for Thursday, the 25th day of May, 29th day of Iyar. Here we go. Just want to remind you that it's going to be Rosh Chodesh on Friday, the first day of the month of Sivan. So don't forget that. Okay, now back to our stuff for today. You know that a lot of people like to say that the Shavuos is the holiday of cheesecake, and I don't want to burst anybody's bubble. And yes, it's a nice thing to have cheesecake on Shavuos, but it should not be called the holiday of cheesecake. That's not like what Shavuos is all about, and we should straighten that out here today. First of all, the way the Torah actually describes the holiday of Shavuos is God tells us that you're supposed to count 50 days after the second day of Pesach, the counting of Omer, and then on the 50th day you should have an Atzeres, one special Yom Tov, and on that Yom Tov there should be a special sacrifice brought on the altar, and no, it's not cheesecake, and it's two special loaves of bread. Yeah. And the actual fact that it was the day of the giving of the Torah, that's not even mentioned in the description of the holiday. It's just called that special holiday when we have a special sacrifice of two loaves of bread. And also it's the holiday that God tells us to bring the Bikurim, our first fruits, to the temple. And that's about it. No mention of cheesecake. So where did all this cheesecake stuff come from? So let's explain that clearly. There are a lot of fun reasons given, and here are just a smattering of some of them. First of all, according to some, the real explanation is because the Jewish people got the Torah on Shavuos, and with the Torah came many new laws, and suddenly the Jewish people found themselves in a kind of fix. The fix was that they couldn't use their pots because their pots were all like, well, they had just gotten a whole lot of meat laws about how to slaughter meat and how to salt it and everything, and so their pots like needed a lot of koshering, and they weren't all available for use on that first day of Shavuos. According to a lot of people, it was the day of Shabbos, and if it was the day of Shabbos, or even if it wasn't, it's difficult to get all that koshering done, and so they had to eat simpler foods. Hence, some dairy foods were eaten instead of meat, which was difficult to kosher on that first day that they got the Torah. So they had some dairy. So we commemorate that by eating some dairy. And a good dairy food is cheesecake. Seriously. That's the explanation according to some. The explanation according to others could work something like this. Moshe, you know, was born 3 months early. The Egyptians had been watching. They knew, they calculated when everybody was going to give birth, and they would have wanted to kill him. God helped make the fact that Moshe was born on Zayin Adar 3 months early. 3 months later, when they finally came to check for him being alive, they had already put the box holding him in the Nile, and so he was discovered by the daughter of Paro. He was brought to the palace, and he wouldn't nurse from any of the ladies there because he was the future Moshe Rabbeinu, and so they couldn't find anything to give him, and they had to give him different kinds of milk, and that was 3 months exactly after Zayin Adar, which is Shavuos. So that means milk was a very important item on that Shavuos day, and so forever we commemorate that by having dairy foods on Shavuos, like cheesecake. Seriously, that's one of the second famous reasons. Another one is because the numerical value of the word chalav is 40. Moshe spent 40 days and 40 nights on Har Sinai. That's another reason for chalav, 40, Moshe on the mountain for 40, so dairy foods, hence cheesecake. Also, you may not know this, but one of the many names for Har Sinai is Har Gavnunim. That's one of the names of Har Sinai, Har Gavnunim, which is related to the word gavina, which is cheese, and hence cheesecake on Shavuos. Another reason is because the Torah is considered sweet, sweet like milk and honey, and therefore Torah is alluded to by milk, honey, and so therefore cheesecake on Shavuos. Seriously, these are some of the famous reasons. There are others. But those are some of the more famous ones that allude to dairy being a food that was eaten back on Shavuos time, or that at least milk is something that should be remembered on Shavuos time, hence the dairy foods, and hence cheesecake, which is a delicious dairy food, became popular on Shavuos. That's how it works. Thanks for logging on. Log on again tomorrow for more, and remember, it's Rosh Chodesh on Friday. Bye-bye.